Yeah, thanks for the lead up. Okay. There isn't anything I love more in this world than hearing about real life stories of romance. How people meet, get together, the challenges they face, if they stay together or not, what they learn from the whole experience. Although I didn't exactly have the ideal model of a relationship around me growing up, my parents were in a marriage for all the wrong reasons, but financial codependency was what bound them together. So, rather than hear them scream at each other, I'd turn on the TV to old rom-coms that put relationships under a microscope. When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, just to name a few, were how I learned that love as a concept is definable in an infinite amount of ways. Romantic relationships are lifelong journeys that people commit themselves to try and define their own versions of love. I couldn't think of anything more courageous than to dive into the deep end of that pool. What I don't love is having a bitch sobbing in my ear about how much she misses her ex, only to 5 minutes later express how much she hates him. And to prove with absolute certainty that she's over him, she recounts how she fucked a rebound guy on the beach and let him come in between her tits. It was the summer after we both finished college. My old high school friend, let's call her Carrie, and I both moved back to our hometown of San Jose. Carrie and I were never super close, but most of our hometown friends had already moved out to other cities. As a result, we found ourselves enjoying each other's company more often, taking pride in being the last ones left. But that wasn't the only reason. I had just graduated with a bachelor's degree in English from UC Irvine. Go Anteaters, saw it. And job prospects weren't looking great. An English degree doesn't exactly scream ideal hire. Although it should, critical thinking is a dying skill. My lack of career path had me feeling lost about my place in the world. Carrie, on the other hand, just finished studying abroad in Germany, where she fell in love with someone there, only for them to break up the day she had to leave. So, as time went on, we did our best to support each other. I gave her a shoulder to cry on, and she would lend an ear. But once Carrie hit her rebound phase, it hit like, well, pig's blood in the horror movie Carrie. From then on, every time we saw each other, she would talk about a new guy, a new hookup, a new prospective boyfriend, and nothing else. In rom-com terms, I was playing the role of the gay best friend. The one that's there to be funny and supportive and the butt of all jokes. Essentially, I was George in my best friend's wedding. Then, at one point, she tells me, "I don't know why I keep talking to you about this. It's not like you can help me with my dating problems. How are you this old and still a virgin?" For the record, I do identify as gay. Yes, I am a faggot, loud and proud. But at the time, I had only been out for 2 years. I was 24, still getting comfortable with my sexuality, and the idea of getting into any sort of romantic tryst felt far off from me. To have Carrie be so blunt and shame me for not having any experience in that department, it was clear she just wasn't being sensitive to my feelings anymore. She wasn't supporting me the way I felt a friend should, so I cut her off, blocked her phone number and on all social media. I was done being part of a rom-com. It was time I started looking out for myself. Still, months later, Carrie's comments about my virginity kept nagging at me for some reason. I didn't want to admit it. I really didn't. But she had a point. Why wasn't I having sex with local hot men in my area? I was getting older, and it seemed like the natural next step in my life. I understand everyone goes at their own pace, so even though Carrie instigated the thought, I reassured myself. I had enough of hearing her tales of woeful dates and hookups. It was time for some spicy stories of my own. So I plunged into the pool that was Grindr, with the objective of losing my virginity. My initial experience with Grindr was definitely something. On the app, you're just given one giant grid of profile icons, No swiping left or right here. And when I saw this for the first time, it was just a smorgasbord of different things. Headless torsos with abs, overly zoomed in pictures of people's faces, profiles with no picture at all, more headless torsos with abs. It was clear. This isn't a place to find your one true love. Although some people have. It was a place to fuck and get dicked down. It was fascinating and overwhelming and horny all at the same time. As I read through people's profiles, I had to Google all the different terms being used. Google, what does looking mean? It means looking for sex. What is hosting? It means you can have sex at their place. What does T mean on Grindr? T is short for Tina Turner, which is, for some reason, slang for crystal meth. This isn't exclusive to Grindr, but it's up there a lot. I received one-word messages, and more often than not, they would be followed up with an unsolicited dick pic. Usually more than one dick pic. So many dick pics. Most were soft, some hard, some post-squirting, all unappealing. Aesthetically, dicks just aren't very pretty, are they? They're all veiny and long and curved and bell-shaped and blah. I mean, I'll still suck one, but I digress. One person did catch my eye, though. He was an older gentleman, looked to be in his 50s or so. He was a silver fox, bearded with an athletic body, a wry smile, and mischievous eyes. He had pictures of him in a suit, casual wear, and of course, one with the headless torso with abs. He looked handsome and refined, and the hopeless romantic in me was picturing us flirting at a fancy hotel bar, him buying me a drink, asking me to dance. Anyway, his profile name was Daddy Eggplant Squirt for Son. Like I said, Grindr is not a romantic place. I message him, "Hello, Daddy." He responds, "Hi, handsome." Looking? I respond, "Yes, it's my birthday." I find myself outside Daddy Eggplant Squirt for Son's apartment. And for the sake of me not having to call him that every time, let's just call him Bill from now on. My hands are shaking, thoughts swirling in my head. Did I really want to do this? I could just go home and watch porn instead. What if I'm being catfished? What if he's a serial killer? Am I going to die a virgin? Should I be ready to call the police if something happens? What if he secretly has a wife and we're caught by her? Oh God, what if she wants to watch? I shake my thoughts away for a brief moment and knock on his door anyway. Bill opens it, a soft smile on his face. He's gained a lot of weight compared to his photos, but his sharp features remain the same. Being a ball of anxiety, I say nothing and let it slide. Besides, he still looked pretty hot. "Hey there," he says in a gruff but gentle voice. I let out a high-pitched, "Hello." He lets me in, asks me if I want anything, a glass of water or wine. I politely decline. He follows up. Well then. He locks hands with me, his much larger and rougher than mine, and he pulls me into the bedroom. Before we can even sit down, his lips are on mine and our tongues interlock. I'd never tasted another person before. It was warm, wet, and welcoming. So this is what it's like, I thought. We were both turned on at that point. The next step was obvious. But before we could get any further, I pulled away. I scanned the room to make sure what we were doing was absolutely private. I closed the curtains to his window looking out at the street, dimmed the lamps in the room, closed the bedroom door. What we were about to do, in other countries would be executed. Bill watched me, a little curious at what I was doing, but didn't stop me until I was finished. Hey, he grabbed my hand again and squeezed it. Relax. No one's here but us. At that point, I felt ashamed. I wasn't being fair to Bill, and admitted this was my first time. That I was nervous and inexperienced, that I kind of rushed into this and acted on impulse. The whole time, he listened to me, kept his eyes on mine, and nodded in understanding. I'm glad you told me, he replies. He lays his hands on the sides of my arms. Let's take some deep breaths, okay? Breathe in. Breathe out. You're safe here, he says. We can do whatever you want next. It's your choice. Well, it isn't my birthday. I wasn't lying about that. I joke half-heartedly. That got a laugh out of him. His charm was immaculate. And we continued. We went back to kissing. The clothes came off, and in a matter of minutes, he was on top of me. You're sure about this? He asks. Breathe in. Breathe out. Do it, I say. The whole time, Bill's making sure I'm comfortable, my legs up and my head not hitting the bed's headboard with every thrust. But as I'm taking it all in, Bill stops for a moment. He wipes the sweat off his brow, then slowly leans his head down to my ear. He whispers, I'm going to get you pregnant. That was the night I learned about the male pregnancy fetish. For those of you just now learning about this kink, I would personally like to say, I'm sorry. Or you're welcome. Whichever works for you, we don't kink shame here. After all was said and done, we just laid there next to each other for a few minutes. Normally, this is when the visitor is kicked out or awkwardly leaves, but that's not what happened. We got to talking, shared a bit about ourselves. We talked about our outlooks on life, how we felt about the current state of the world, our mortality, and what type of legacy we'd want to leave when we die. It felt nice, being vulnerable to this perfect stranger lying next to me. As we continued to talk, it did occur to me that I was probably just playing the role of listener again, this time to a lonely old man. But even if I was, it wasn't the worst role to play. I knew this wasn't romance, but it wasn't nothing. We weren't Edward and Vivian in Pretty Woman. We were Bob and Charlotte in Lost in Translation. And I was finally playing one of the leads.